Hi, everyone. Welcome to our chat. I will be asking the speakers to join us, so please hold on really quick and we'll get started.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. I know people are just starting to come in. My name is Beatriz Acevedo, and I'm the CEO and co founder of Suma Wealth. We are excited to see our comunidad here together, and we are so excited to have Valeria with us today, who is going to give us some tools and some practical advice on how to attract more money, including crypto for the crypto enthusiasts. And it's all in the way we think. So whether it's, fiat money, traditional money, or any cryptocurrency, it all works the same way. Yeah, right? What we tell ourselves and the way we think and the blocks that we have from when we were growing up prevents us from attracting any kind of money or any kind of wealth, because wealth is not only money, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But we're going to give it a few minutes for others to join. I see, Valeria, you're now upgraded to a speaker. If you want to say hello to the people who are joining.
Hola, hola. Super excited to be here today with the intention of all of us walking away today with insights and also a renewed mindset towards what's possible for us in terms of creating wealth. Super excited. Thank you, Bea, for having
Of
me.
course, of course. Thanks for being here. And we were trying to do this during May, during the month of May for mental health month, because we think that this is so powerful, right? Our minds, our brains are so powerful, even when it comes to money. But we were able to get it scheduled today, so we're happy you guys are joining us. And Valeria, while people continue to come in, and we'll just give it a few more minutes, do you mind to give a little background of yourself, where you're originally from, how you started doing this work?
Definitely. I'm originally from Argentina. That's where the accent is from a small rural town. And I come from a very hardworking family, but I paved my way through education. First one to go to college, first one to work in corporate spaces, first one to speak a second language, English. And I came to the US 20 years ago for my MBA. And it's been a traditional corporate career until 2016 that I burnt out. And looking into why I burnt out, I had a lot of unconscious mindsets coming from our culture that were holding me back. So I started to study them. And also in 2016, as I left corporate, I immersed myself in our community by building um, entrepreneurship centers and incubators, accelerators with different organizations. And I immersed myself in who we are. And I found that the same mindsets that held me back as an immigrant from Latin America were holding back other immigrants from Latin America and also their children. So I said, there's something into this. This is cultural. And I decided to start doing workshops. Then I wrote the book Uncolonized Latinas. And now I'm, the founder of the Rising Together movement that will be doing these transformational mindset workshops across the US in person and virtually. So this started with honestly, my own failures. If you think about it, I hit a wall. I burnt out. I had all these degrees, an MBA from an Ivy League, all these corporate names in my resume, and I was absolutely miserable. So I hit a wall, and that opened the opportunity to embrace my true purpose, which is this one, what we're here to do, which is helping our community unlock our true potential, because there's so much for us, so much that we have not tapped into and we have not even spoken about. So we're here to speak about topics that are usually not spoken or even uncomfortable for the Latino community.
That's great. And that's an amazing intro, Valeria. And you know what? I know our whole seminar is going to be about our mindset and attracting money, making money. What are we doing wrong? What are the things we need to think or not think about? But you hit on a really important topic just now when you said burnout. I think as Latinas primarily, that we're not only the CEOs of our own companies, but also the CEOs of our households. Or even if you work if you're not a CEO, but you work at a corporation, we have so many responsibilities, right? From work to home to taking care of our aging parents, some of us who have kids, husbands, wives. I mean, there is so much that we take on as women. That workout is really, really real and really hard. I mean, I've had that too. Today, I was talking to another entrepreneur very early, and she was like, "I'm exhausted. I don't have the energy to keep doing what I do." And what she does is so critical to our community. So I do want to touch upon later on burnout. Let's not forget about that. Like, can you attract money if you're burned out? Or, how does burnout relate to having wealth in your life? So that's going to be my question for later, but I'm going to get going because we have a good group of people now. And thanks for your intro. I was going to do some sort of intro, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the broader topic. And again, anybody listening, please raise your hand at any moment. We want this to be a very interactive Twitter space. We want to hear from you. We want to give Valeria an opportunity to answer your questions or anything that's on your mind, okay? So by all means, don't be shy, que no les dé pena. So welcome to our Sumas Money Cafecito, and our topic, as we've been talking about, is how to attract more money, including crypto. So also digital money, digital currencies, and learn what's keeping you from making money. As we said, we're incredibly excited to have Valeria Aloe with us. She's a speaker, she's an entrepreneur, an award-winning author of Uncolonized Latinas, a book that I have. Uncolonized Latinas, the full title is Transforming Our Mindsets and Rising Together. And as she mentioned, she's also the founder of the Rising Together movement. So thanks, Vale, for being here with us. I also want to introduce a group of our Suma team who happen to be millennials and Gen Zs. I'm a Gen Xer, not yet a boomer, as my kids will call me if I say anything that's not cool. But, we wanted to have different generations here. So we have a younger group with us. We have Melanie and Mariana Montoya. They are sisters, and you see them in a lot of our videos. They're awesome. We have Miriam Libriesca, who manages all the cool stuff that you see on our feeds. So Miriam, thanks. And, they both bring their own personal experiences with money. So we want to hear from them. And then we have a few other people from our team that are listening in, and hopefully everybody that wants to participate. Okay, so let's get going, and we're gonna have a giveaway also. I just wanted to say that we're gonna give you guys a secret word later, and we are going to have a giveaway of Valeria's book. So we're very excited about that. Okay, so let's just get started because we have so much to talk about, right? We just mentioned a little bit that our behavior as Latinos about money, carry a lot of baggage, right? From our experiences, maybe as immigrants from our Latino countries, to our parents' experiences, the thoughts, the behaviors that we have. And I know all of it's in your book, Vale. From feeling unworthiness about having money, or guilty for having money. Sometimes, when our parents or our grandparents didn't make the money that we are lucky to be making now, we feel this sense of guilt. And then, also that feeling of inadequacy and connection to a new country. For people who are immigrant, we do have a lot of US born, but, it's a very different generation of how your parents feel being immigrants. And that widespread mistrust of financial institutions. And it's very well warranted, just because we come from so much generational trauma when it comes to, our finances and how we saw our families lose it all overnight in our countries of origin. So let's get going. I mean, there's a lot there. So let's get going there. I know you just mentioned what made you feel compelled to write this book and to do this work, and we heard that it was all in the burnout, right? And you hit a wall. So how does burnout kind of really equate to our money or our mindset about money?
So this is a lot to unpack. We're going to unpack this slowly for listeners. And thank you, Bea, for an amazing introduction. You know, we have so many emotions towards money. Money has huge emotions associated with it, and also deep unconscious roots that come from our culture. And in addition to having these unconscious roots, we don't speak about it. It's like we don't talk about Bruno in a way, right? So we don't speak about this in our families. I never spoke with my parents about money. All I heard from them was money is so hard to earn and it's so hard for us to make money. And we need to really work hard, in a way, sacrifice to make money. So when you unpack everything that we bring from our culture, and considering that by the age of 18, your belief system is quite set, meaning everything that you heard or observed growing up from authority figures, not necessarily your parents, any authority figures, you absorbed like a sponge and is sitting somewhere in your unconscious and drives your behaviors and your results without you knowing about it. Actually, research shows that 95% of our thinking or the decisions we make have a component of unconsciousness. We are not fully, we believe we are in control and we know why we're deciding certain things or, what we're doing. But the reality is we're mostly unconscious about what's driving us. So this conversation will be very powerful. And I can share with you some of the research that I have conducted in terms of what are those deep unconscious roots that influence our behavior and our relationship with money, and that honestly hold us back from building wealth. Because that's what we see in our community. When you look at the statistics, Latinos own 21 cents of wealth compared to each $1 of wealth owned by non diverse communities. Only 20% of the wealth that non diverse population has. So there is a gap, there is a real gap. How so what do we do about this? Because we could say, oh, the system has to change, somebody has to do something about it. But the approach we're having today is different. Is what can I do myself to change my mindset? Because it starts within, and we have a lot of baggage from our culture that holds us back. So to start unpacking all of this, there is one important component that we bring from our Latin American cultures, that is unworthiness. We have, unworthiness towards greatness. We feel not deserving of greatness. And this is, as I said many times, unconscious. You may not see exactly how this shows up yet, but stay with me because I'm going to share with you some of the behaviors and then you will be able to relate. So we have unworthiness going on in our communities, unworthiness of making money, not deserving greatness. Like, in a way, it's like being wealthy is not for us, it's not available, it's not a possibility. That's sitting in our unconscious. Why? Because many of us, many, if not most, have experienced or observed in our families and communities poverty, struggles, scarcity. That's how we grow up. So when you grow up surrounded by poverty, struggles, and scarcity, or your parents come from that, you're only one generation removed from poverty and struggle. That's how you grew up, and that's what you believed as a child, small child, that was going to be your life. You projected that in the future, and that's sitting in the unconscious. And we also have there some components of the perceptions of money in our Latin American countries where we come from. Usually, people who make large amounts of money in our countries not necessarily make it in a clean way, right? So there is that stigma. Money has a
Right.
stigma.
Or like our abuelitas would say, like, el dinero es el diablo, right?
Sí, sí, totalmente.
You're like, why would they
Sí,
say that? Like, that's so. Or I know, like, for example, my dad didn't think el dinero es el diablo, but to your point about people who had a lot of money, like, my dad hated rich people, right? Like, he just
sí,
couldn't stand them. And he would be like, ah, esos nuevos ricos. Like, being rich was like the worst thing in the world. And I remember, like, when I paid for my wedding, he didn't tell me, and my dad already passed away, and I adored my dad, but this is the most painful thing I heard that he told my mother. And he's like, oh, your daughter, tu hija se está comportando como nueva rica. Like like the thing
See,
he hated the most, because I could pay for it, right? Because I was
see.
like, listen, I want the wedding I want, and I'm going to cut a check. And he was just out of his mind of just like, how is this? Like, just making money had such a stain for him. He was very much of a Robin Hood that's like, let's take from the rich to give to the poor, that sort of mentality. And he was very successful in his career, and that's why he felt like he had to give it all away, sort of like to be clean. And like I tell people, like, if you don't like money or making money, our community needs so much of it, make it, and give it away. There's,
Yes.
but the fact that he had that mindset, right, or that he would just think that's a horrible quality to have, to make money, definitely affected the entire family.
Yes, and I have examples as well growing up. You know, my parents, in a way, were very, I would say, negative also about people who made money. And I always wondered, and this is something that is in our mindsets, how will money change me, right? When I started to earn money, I said, will this money change who I am? Will I change as a person? Because there's that hesitation, right? How will money change me? And also, you said that the guilt of making money, and a step deeper will be being a traitor of our family of or the culture, because now we make money. So there's all of that that's sitting behind the scenes that we don't talk about. But essentially, it's like making money brings you to hell, not necessarily to heaven. That's what we heard in our cultures, and all the negative connotations. So imagine when you start making money, and then in your mind, in the mindset, in the thinking, in the unconscious, you have all these negative connotations. I can tell you, Bea, when I started to do well with my business, and I was thinking about the money and everything, I got a knot in my stomach. I'm like, how is it possible that I feel uncomfortable? I'm doing well. And to your point about the burnout, going back to the original question, how what happens with the burnout is when we feel guilty about money, when we feel traitors of making money, we start overcompensating. That's something a lot of Latinos do, which is, I'm going to work harder to deserve this money that is coming in. So when we do well, we work harder because we need to either, as I heard growing up, it has to be with sacrifice. Money doesn't come easy, so it has to be hard earned. Work harder. So we overcompensate and then we burn out. That's a behavior that many in our Hispanic community show, because the root of this is we feel not deserving of it, or even ashamed of making money. And the other behavior that happens, related to the unworthiness, is procrastination. So because we are uncomfortable about money, because we don't understand how that works, because we never talk about it in our communities, in our families, then we start procrastinating. I don't understand it. I feel uncomfortable about it. So I'm going to put that aside. And that's a discussion that my husband and I had in the house, is how are we going to invest our money? And it became a fight. It became a fight. We were so uncomfortable talking about it that we even fought over the decisions we had to make. So we did nothing for a long time. And that's a huge mistake, right? Then you have some money sitting there as cash with all the inflation. So we procrastinate. So those are all behaviors that hold us back from creating the wealth we deserve.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I something happened to my phone, and I couldn't hear for a little bit, and I had to log on. So I apologize if you asked me, and I didn't respond. I did
This is
listen.
life.
I did
This is
listen to the
real.
money under the colchon that you did not invest. Which, if you think about it, you're not only not growing it, but it's becoming less and less, right? Because money under the colchon, as we say, it's totally eats up by inflation, particularly now. But yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that part, but hopefully I didn't miss anything else. I want to make sure that, I mean,
I
people have an opportunity to ask questions as well, if there's any yet, or if you want to keep going. I know you're talking about the blocks that we have.
I did want to make a note actually. Hi everyone, my name is Miriam and I work at Suma. But I think going along with what Valeria was saying about that you get so frustrated that you don't do anything about it. I think when I started to have this like similar conversations with my parents, and my parents, we never really talked about money. They're immigrants, so it's kind of like, I mean, they know what they know about money is what they know from their home country. So we know that a lot of Latinos have a very they're hesitant of banks and all that stuff. So I think when I started having these conversations about investing, it was so my parents would kind of freeze up because it's such an unknown concept to them that they kind of get a little scared. And then after, when they finally like understood that it was like the right way to go, then they started asking me questions. And at that point, I think there was a lot that I don't know. And I started to get a little bit frustrated, and like, because I didn't know how to answer. And then that I kind of like put it off as well. And I think that's definitely a behavior that a lot of us sometimes experience, where we feel super overwhelmed and then we kind of don't do anything. So I would be super interested, Valeria, to hear more about how we can, one, realize that we're kind of overwhelmed, and then two, what to do in order to get out of that and actually take action.
Great question. And it goes back to the emotions associated with money. So, the overwhelm, you will feel it. You will feel the confusion, the not knowing what to do, the frustration. So, never, ever, ever, ever make a money decision under that type of emotional state. You need to be balanced, you need to be clean and clear. So, how do you handle those emotions? The first step is being aware that's happening to you, looking into that. And what I do to release my emotions, I journal. Journaling, writing down the kinesthetic movement of writing what I'm feeling helps me release it. So otherwise it stays inside of you. You can also talk to a very good friend, about it, to your tribe, about how you feel. But then when you need to make those decisions, be in an absolute, like, clean, balanced, neutral state. Super important. Never make money decisions or have money discussions when emotions are running, because that is not the way to go. And I tell you from personal experience, it can damage relationships. So you mentioned also um, the lack of trust. I have to say that we have this intergenerational lack of trust in experts generally. So financial institutions are one. The trusting experts with money. I remember when we went to a financial advisor and they started to ask all these questions. How much money do you have? How much money do you make? It's absolutely uncomfortable. It's like you feel you are naked, right? They're asking all
Yeah.
these questions.
Too intrusive, muy metiche,
Yes,
you know?
yes. But it goes beyond financial institutions. I know we have some people in the audience. I have a friend right here who is a CPA, Karen. So we also mistrust lawyers, CPAs, banks. So if you're a business owner, this is something we do in our Latino community. As business owners, we do not build a team of experts around us until we have a problem. So that lack of trust in the experts is we take action when we have a problem instead of being proactive, right? So that's a behavior across the board of not disclosing, not feeling comfortable sharing, feeling naked and vulnerable talking about these topics. So super important to become aware of this. We all do it, we all do it. And there is something else about the intergenerational aspect, right? What we learn from our parents, that is really, we have in addition to the intergenerational lack of trust, we have also the intergenerational lack of knowledge around wealth creation and how
Yeah.
to multiply it. So we kind of, some people are closer to the finish line. We're very far from the finish line if you think about it, because we have not inherited the knowledge that other people have here in the US on how you build and multiply wealth. We don't have it. So what do you do when that's the case, right? And at this point with my parents, I have to say that I have personally embraced that trying to change their mindset around money, they are in their 70s, maybe a little bit too difficult at this point, right? They are very set in their belief systems. So what I know that I will have to do, and many of you maybe in a similar situation, is come to the rescue when it's time. I know that. I know I need to save for myself. I know I need to save for my kids under college. I know I need to save for my parents as well. That's part of my plan, right? Coming to the rescue. But for younger generations who have a growth mindset, the opportunity to change things, where do you start? Is really looking within and understanding that a lot of what you carry in your mindset in relationship to money is obsolete and comes from a place of scarcity, from struggle, and is information that is not just outdated. I would say is even incorrect in a way. These are like all the illusions, that the stories that our culture told us about who we are and what's possible for us.
Yeah. And Valeria, you said something just a little while ago as far as like can do these things, having those feelings. So how do you change that? What do you tell yourself? How do you change what you're constantly thinking or obsessing about? Like, is there a trick?
So yeah, I have a few tricks. Some of them are very personal. Some of them I learned in my master's in spiritual sciences. There is a correlation between spirituality and money, believe it or not, right? It's hard to believe. That's where we come from, that we think that money is bad, right? No, money is good. So I love to talk about micro steps. Money in the hands of good people does a lot of good in the world, but we need to take it in micro steps. And the first thing that I have done with myself to retrain my brain to think differently are two things that I will share with you. Number one, I have sticky notes around the house that have key phrases that I see and repeat to myself all the time. And they are quite the opposite to what I heard growing up. So growing up, I heard sacrifice is required to make money, or essentially I have to burn out to succeed. And I followed that to the letter. I burned out to succeed. I did it perfectly. So, how am I going to do it differently now? And I have sticky notes around my house that help me visually. And try that for at least 30 days. And I tell myself, I am deserving of making money. Money comes to me without sacrifice. My life is abundant. So you name it. You come up with whatever phrase resonates to your heart, but talk to yourself internally and help yourself with visual aids that will support the way you want to think about money. So think about, what words do I need to hear and read daily that will support me to change my mindset. I am deserving of making money. I am worthy of attracting big amounts of money. These are not even affirmations. This is like reframing your thinking and the unconscious entirely. That's one of the tools that I used, and it's super effective. But you need to be consistent and have the discipline of putting these sticky notes, or even it could be pillows with phrases, right? Or little signs across the house, high traffic areas that you take. Even I open cabinets and I have sticky notes. Okay, that's how it is in my house, and it's helping my kids because they see them too. But it has to be super intentional. How you think, what you read, what you tell yourself. That's one trick. The second trick that really worked for me is to keep what I call a money magnet. So I have cash, I have bills, actual bills, because something that has happened, and research shows this, that because our money is sitting in a bank and it's a number on a screen, we lost the touching of the money, the smelling of the money, the actual bills. So the kinesthetic part is so important. So what I keep is, I have money that I keep, a money magnet in a box, and I open my box, I touch my money, I smell the money, I see the money. So that allows me to have that connection, physical connection with the money. And try it, try it. Give it a try and see what happens to you and the way you attract money from then on. Having physical contact with the money makes it real. And a part of you needs to have that reinforcement that the money is there and that you have the money. that you're abundant already, right? So try those two and see what happens. The money magnet is a big one. That is life changing.
That's that's that. Those are two very very good tips. We'll have to get our magnet and get our bills. I can always pull mine from under my mom's mattress because she's also like, no voy a llevar el dinero al banco porque no quiero que me lo quiten. Or, you know, she's very, very old school. But, you know, she's had that trauma that herself, she saw in an instant how, you know, the money they had saved in one devaluation just completely disappeared. So I understand where the post traumatic
Yes.
syndrome comes from. Mariana
Valdea, you
and
said something very interesting there. You mentioned something very interesting. So your mom had the money, the physical money under the mattress, but however, the emotion she had towards money was scarcity.
mm-hmm,
So there is something very important in the manifestation and attraction of money and abundance and wealth. That is, you have to see it, but the emotion has to be positive, because it's like when you set a vision of what you want. If you set a vision and you walk towards your vision, but you do it with negative emotions, feeling lacking, feeling unworthy, feeling that there is not enough, those are negative emotions that hold you back. So how do you change this? Is you keep the money in the money magnet, right? It doesn't mean you keep all the money under the mattress. No, the money magnet is a little portion of all your savings, like a few bills, something. It's a little portion. But then when you look at the money, you have feelings of abundance, gratefulness, gratitude. Have a positive emotion. That makes the difference. The elevated emotion and gratitude, in a way, when you touch the money and you are saying you are thankful for the money you have, you are thankful for the abundant life you have, a part of your brain believes that it's like when you have gratitude towards something, a part of the brain believes that it already happened.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, so we should definitely not be, you know, following in the footsteps of our moms or abuelitas that we always heard them say, "No tengo dinero." You know, I think that's one of the worst
No,
things that you could tell your brain.
exactly. So it's better to say quiero dinero, honestly, than to say no tengo dinero. That's, oh my gosh, no tengo dinero. You're just affirming that there's no way out. No tengo
Right.
dinero y nunca lo voy a tener. Sí.
Right. Yeah, that's terrible. No, this is all good. And obviously, you know, there's a lot of, you know, young people listening here who are now starting to make investments in the world of crypto or digital currencies. But really, your mind works the same way, whether it's fiat with those, you know, bills that are printed or whether it's digital, because that law of attraction is identical to a digital currency than, you know, a physical one. No.
Yes, it's the same. It's exactly the same. Yes.
Melanie and Mariana, do you guys have any thoughts, or anybody else in the audience? Please raise your hand if you have any questions, and if not, we'll keep going.
No, we absolutely love you. I mean, I was telling Mel this time where we like were about to wake up my dad, and it's like it goes to show how a veces like like the idea of not having money is so rooted in your subconscious. But anyways, he was in the living room and we were about to wake him up, and he was like, "No tengo dinero." Like that was the first thing that he came. So I was like, wow, he's really rooted into this like, mentality, maybe because of where he came from, like his background and all of that. But when you were saying that, I was just laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, that's my dad. That's my dad.
Yeah, that's my mom too. She's just like, no tengo dinero, pero llévame al arroz. I'm like, oh my God. It's just pretty hilarious, right? But yeah, we have to really change that for sure in our generations and in the future generations. But the more that we can even tell our parents, yeah, like, don't say that, you know, because this is true for money or for anything else. I have a daughter who's applying to colleges, and she's like, I'm not going to get into any college. I'm not going to get into any good college. I'm not gonna, like, every second I'm like, you got to stop, because that, like, that's going to become the reality. And she's like, what do you know? Like, that's not true. I'm like, it's true. It's true. You are what you think. And I think We really need to believe that our minds are so powerful, that you have to be so careful on how you're using them for good or not, right?
Totalmente. And that's called the impeccability of the spoken word. It's to be impeccable. We need to, I was having this conversation with a friend the other day, is we need to be impeccable on the words that come out of our mouth, because what you speak about is a reflection of how you think. And therefore, those are the results that you have, because the
Right.
way you think influence your behaviors. There's a correlation between thinking and behavior, a direct correlation. And the words are only an expression, like a reflection of what's inside of you. So we need to start being more conscious and changing that narrative and changing the way, the impeccability of how we speak, because that's what we manifest. At the end of the day, it's all correlated.
Right, for sure. Okay, well, I don't see any hands raised. Or are there? Or anybody else have a question? Oh, good. Okay, Mariana or Mel.
Hi, this is Melanie. So I honestly, I'm really super. I'm enjoying everything, and one of the things that really out for specifically are all these kind of like practices that you kind of been mentioning. Like, I love this whole idea of like kind of like having the dinero in cash and like touching it. I feel like, at least for me, as someone who obviously I'm Gen Z, I'm really to everything being so virtual and everything being like on screen. So just having this tangible object and just revisiting it feels very new to me. I feel like that's definitely something that I've never heard of, and I'm excited to see what it will do. The other thing I know, kind of mentioned it, but this whole idea of procrastination really, I think, speaks to a lot of, I don't know, like at least for me, like as a Gen Z first generation student, my dad is always like, oh, I have these like really good ideas about like, how I'm gonna put up my own business, but I always feel like there's that analysis paralysis, that kind of holds him back, and that fear, and it kind of just like trickles onto us as well.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's, why it's also what your experience is not experiencing is not just the intergenerational differences, that two different generations, but also that your generation, our generation, the ones here, we have opportunities that our parents didn't have. It's not just the generational differences and the mindset, it's also that the opportunities that we face today as Latinos are unprecedented. This is a historic moment in life for our community, in which more of us are breaking through spaces, being the first ones to go to college, the first ones, to tap into spaces of wealth creation. And so it's like we're speaking different languages with them. And I see that in my parents too, the fear, the analysis paralysis, as you said, the need to have all the box checked in a world where it's impossible to have 100% of all the boxes checked before you move on. There is some risk associated, right, always with taking action. And being conservative in a way, or trying to check all the boxes, or the analysis paralysis, is a way of controlling. I'm in fear, I'm not understanding, so I'm trying to control what's going on around me. So those are all control tactics that we have. And for our parents, I would say we need a lot of compassion, understanding that they are closer than us, they were brought up closer than us to struggle. They were raised in countries where they heard all the time that they were in a third world country. So imagine what it does to you. And I'm coming from Argentina as an immigrant. You feel inferior. Definitely, you put yourself in a small box immediately because you are from a third world country coming to the first world economy. So we have all of that going on.
Sure. And Valeria, I just want to be mindful of time because you have so many, great things and exercises that I want our listeners to, be able to get before the last 20 minutes that we have. So I know that you had proposed some steps that we can take to unlearn these money blocks that we have in our minds. from a generic perspective, and with some examples. One included a light bulb moment, another one the I'm not alone, and another one was what can I do. Can you give us a little bit more into those, and how we can do this exercise ourselves, aside of the never saying no tengo dinero, trying the magnet one, and doing the stickies? We already have a few. But
Yes.
how do we go on to do these other unlearning money blocks?
So I'll give you like a 3-step process. The first one always is awareness. And that's what we're doing today, to become aware of our behaviors, to understand where they come from. And usually we're too busy to stop and be conscious and be aware. So I suggest that you create pauses. I do journaling, as I said. I'm intentional about creating. I block time in my calendar, even to stop and evaluate how's my day going. Before I make an important decision about money, I stop. We need time to stop and to become aware of what's driving me. Am I being driven by fear, by cultural influences, by the scarcity that we bring from our culture, the inferiority, or am I being conscious of what I'm doing? So awareness is the first step. And that's when you will start seeing that you're uncomfortable, that you have all these emotions. So what do you do with that? The second step is making new decisions and changing your inner dialogue. And we went a little bit into that with the sticky notes. Essentially, this is when you're catching yourself through that awareness, the step one, when you're catching yourself saying, no tengo dinero, I don't have money, you need to change that immediately to a more empowering thought. And that could be, for instance, I am creating abundance. I am generating money. I am gaining new clients. I am, and visualize that. Make new decisions. See that as a possibility for you. You really need to see it and embrace it. And let me give you an example. I grew up hearing that I was going to be the first one to go to college. My parents had no idea how they were going to pay for college. The good thing is they implanted in me the seed that I was going to be the first one to go to college. I grew up, since I can remember, seeing myself holding that degree and getting the diploma and graduating from college. I saw it. I could see it so badly. I wanted it. I could taste it. So that's what when it comes to step two is reframe, make new decisions, change your inner dialogue, support yourself with visualization. That's what we need to do, okay? Change the internal narrative. But this is not possible unless you catch yourself. You need to catch yourself. That's very important. And number three is taking action. And the action that you can take has to do with any particular situation you are going through. But there is a commonality in action. We are very much sometimes when it comes money, we are about todo or nada, right? It's like, or I want to have like $1 million tomorrow, and that's the shortest path to frustration. So you need a plan, but it has to be built with micro steps. So the invitation is step number three: take action in the shape and form of a micro step. And I will offer you some, and then you will decide, if these are good for you, or maybe others come to mind. For instance, we spoke about that we procrastinate when it comes to money, and sometimes we just not even learn about new vehicles to build wealth, and that's cryptocurrency for those of us in my generation, I have to say. So maybe the micro step is I'm gonna learn about cryptocurrency, NFTs. I want to learn something, and I'm gonna be reading tomorrow for 1 hour. That's a micro step. The second one could be having a discussion with a significant person in your life that you need to discuss money right now. That could be even your boss. For instance, Latinos, we never charge our worth. Generally, we make half of what other people make, both as business owners and as professionals. So maybe the next step for you is to do the research on your market value and to have a discussion. Another one could be to start investing in you. We are a community that we buy a lot of stuff. We are consumers. We're big consumers. We drive this economy in the US. But we need to start investing more in our personal development. Maybe that's your micro step today, to feel worthy, to invest in you, in taking like training or any sort of financial education, anything that you need to invest in you. And it doesn't mean money, it's also investing time. Okay, so those are some of the micro steps. So again, is having the awareness, stop to catch yourself, number one. Number two, change the inner picture in your mind, the way you talk to yourself, the thoughts that you have around money and the feelings you have around money. And three, you need to take a particular action or nothing will change. So micro steps, take an action after today to break the pattern.
Yeah, I
This is
love that. There was so much that you said there, from being the biggest consumers. I talk a lot to people in our community and I'm like, why don't you invest? And it's the same with my mom. And it's like, again, no tengo dinero. But I'm like, pero tienes dinero para el arroz, or you have dinero para all the
sí,
cosmetics that Latinas buy and all the clothing. And like, even if you think it's really discounted at Ross and Marshalls, it's still, you're still spending that money. So I'm like, change that mindset from a consumer to an owner, right? And that's where you
sí,
start with even making investments as a retail investor or fractional shares on your favorite brands. But we do have to change that mindset, because if no, money under the colchon is definitely not going to grow for us. But the other thing, when
yes,
you said all or nothing, was another thing that really spoke to me in a way that we've talked a lot about the people who say no tengo dinero, and they don't have dinero. But then there's also the other side of the scarcity mentality that come from generational trauma, like PTSD, but post
yes,
traumatic syndrome, but with money, where, like after September 11th, nobody was spending a cent in the US except for Latinos. Nobody was buying luxury cars except for Latinos. And it's that mindset also that comes from our communities, that like, pues si ya nos vamos a morir, mejor me gasto el dinero, kind of thing. Or like, they pay you la quincena and you go spend it all, right? Because pues quién sabe
sí,
mañana. So we are that extreme, right? We go from
sí,
one extreme to the other. I remember, like, my abuelita would say, like, Dios proveerá. Like, she never worked a day in her life, so we had to proveer, right? From the grandkids to her kids to their, we had to support her all the time. But she was, living life large, like, God will handle this for me. And I
sí,
guess that's a better mindset than I don't have money. But then I felt that that was a bit irresponsible in a way. So
yes,
can you talk a little bit about that other sort of extreme in
yeah,
the
oh my
live
gosh,
it all up y Dios proveerá?
yes. So I see that in my parents too. Each little bit of money they have, they consume instead of saving, and sometimes it's unnecessary spending. I see that a lot. So a couple thoughts about this. When we have a sense of lack, when we feel lacking, it's like we have a hole inside. Usually what humans do is to try to fill the hole with something. So when we feel lacking, which is a big feeling in our community, the inferiority, the lacking, the inadequacy, we go and fill that with something. For some people, it's addictions. For some people, it's food. For some people, it's buying stuff that we don't need. It's feeling, it's completing you in a way. It's trying to complete you. That's one. The second one that I have seen is that many immigrants to the US want to show success to their family back in Latin America. So they buy this expensive lifestyle because that's a way of showing success and I achieved the American dream. So that's also feeling successful. It was worth being an immigrant is shocking. It's traumatic. So the trauma was worth it. Look at me. I achieved my American dream. So there is a lot of that as well. But also there is one more that is about, and this is very subtle, very hidden, that is because we come from trauma and because money has, this connotation of is traumatic. In a way, we operate in life, many of us in our community operate in life instead of focusing on what we want to manifest and what we want more of. We are focused in what we want to run away from, which is poverty. So we operate as I don't want to be poor instead of I want to be wealthy. I want to create, see how there is a difference. It's a subtle difference.
Right.
So, by running away from poverty invites you to spend and not to think about the wealth that you can create, what you can manifest. Is filling in a gap, a hole.
Any questions so far? Should we keep going? Want to
I,
definitely hear from the rest of you, and I know Miriam has an announcement very soon.
yes. So I actually saw that Lore. Sorry, I'm gonna probably butcher your name, Lorele. You wanted to speak. If you still want to speak, just let me know. But yes, so as we mentioned in the beginning, we will be giving out Valeria's book so you can continue, your journey of creating more abundance in your life. And I will be tweeting out momentarily our form that you can fill out to be considered for this giveaway. You do need a word, like a special secret word, which is money abundance, that you need to fill out in the form. So I will be tweeting out the form in a bit, and I will also pin it to this conversation. And you can go ahead and do it after the chat. But if anybody else has any more questions, please raise your hand and I'll bump you up as a speaker. But again, the word is money abundance.
Okay, excellent. And you guys will be able to get so many more tips from Valeria's book, which, by the way, is amazing. I got it as a gift from her when it was just coming out. And I absolutely love it and have it right next to my bed. Anyone else who wants to speak, we remind you we wanted to make this very, very interactive. We still have 9 minutes. We want to honor everyone's time. We know everybody's pressed with time, and we love that you've given us your time for this space. So, Valeria, with the few minutes that we have left, I mean, what are the other things that are must do's? I mean, you've given us a ton of examples and a ton of things to do, but let's talk about the people who are non-believers that their mind can really make things change. I'm going back to my daughter where she's like, how do you know? Like, don't tell me that. It's not true. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to kill her with her daily affirmations. I'm not going to get into a good college because I'm like, Beba, for sure you won't get into a good college. Like with that mindset and with that energy and with you putting that out in the universe, like that wish will come true instead of the one of like, I will get to a college that's gonna, fulfill me as a human being and as a student, as a whatever. So how do we help the ones that kind of don't believe or don't want to be helped, and that it pains you to see them because sometimes they're close family members that we love?
Yeah, that's such a great question because at some point, I have to say that I have teenagers too, and I work a lot. Micro steps. I work a lot with our mindsets. With younger generations, the brains are still information. So sometimes they are resistant to us parents, but they listen. They listen. So I work a lot with their mindsets. I repeat, I share this information with them. But at some point, Bea, what I'm realizing is I learned through experience is that sometimes people need to have their own experience to embrace it. And that was me, because I was not believing in all of this. I'm like, show me, show me, show me how. And I had to hit a wall to really learn the lesson. I'm still alive. I'm still doing great. I'm healthy, thank God. It was only a temporary hit the wall situation. But some of us need to go through the experience to have the learning ourselves because we don't believe what people tell us. And that's my own personal experience, But some other people are more open. And that's the importance of having these conversations because we need to see that more people who look like us believe we can create wealth, believe this is possible, figured out how to do it, and are willing to share it. So the more we talk about it, the more we discuss our struggles, our emotions, even the sense of guilt or shame we have, but also what's working, what are the best practices, what have you learned, what's working for you, where do you invest your money. And we do that within people who look like us. The more that people start opening up, and those brains and mindsets start opening up to possibilities. It's a lot about communication and openness and sharing, and discussing, speaking up.
Got it. Okay, so then maybe it's not their time or their moment yet, and you have to let it be. And that's also a good lesson to learn. Gabrielle, I know you've been upgraded as a speaker, so please unmute yourself, and I'm happy to listen to your question or thought.
Hi, thank you all so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be learning about this. This is definitely a topic that I've been very interested in, but haven't really uh, dove into until now. And so, Valeria, I have a question for you, or maybe like a two-part question. Do you have moments? I'm trying to think about how to put this into practice for my day-to-day life as far as learning to be okay with spending money, because I'm definitely the type of person who hoards my money and tries to save as much as possible. But also, I mean, I'll take care of friends and family and things like that. But when it comes to maybe myself, it's very hard for me to spend on myself. Um, but I was wondering if in a day-to-day practice, if you're out shopping with your kids or your husband or whatever you're doing, and you see something that's like, oh, I'd like to have that, but do you have to find ways, or do you find ways to justify or make a logical, clear reason that, hey, this is an investment in my wardrobe. I need this for my wardrobe because I'm doing business. Do you have thought processes like that? Or what would you recommend for those who maybe think about it too much?
That's such a great question, and shows a pattern that many Latinas have, which is cultural, that we put ourselves last. So we
Mhm.
take care of everybody else, and we buy clothes and shoes and gifts and perfumes or whatever it is for everybody, and we put ourselves last, and we even feel guilty about, or undeserving in a way of giving something to ourselves. So I had to learn personally when I started to connect with when I started to reprogram my mindset into I deserve. I made it very intentional about, listen, I work very hard, and I will give myself a reward. you know, it could be something small, it could be something bigger, but I will give myself a reward, because the reward keeps a part of me contributing the energy that I need to keep manifesting, to keep working, to keep generating, to keep producing. So that reward, to yourself is absolutely super important. And you may feel guilty, you may feel uncomfortable, and when that happens, no, that is cultural. That Latinas, we tend to put ourselves last, and then you tell yourself, I deserve to put myself first. I deserve to make myself happy, because when I take care of myself, then I will take care of everybody else. You need to be fulfilled for you to give of the overflow, right? If you're depleted, there is nothing to give. So we take care of so many people around us as Latinas, that placing yourself first is absolutely important. And giving yourself that reward for the hard work you do is critical for the energy to continue to be put into manifesting and generating.
That
Thank
is
you.
such a great answer. Sorry, go, Gabrielle.
Oh, I was going to say thank you so much. That's very, very, very insightful, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
and we even see it when we board a plane, right? When people say put on your oxygen mask first, even before you put on your child's, which you would be like, oh God, no, I would put on my child before mine. But you can only help if you are okay. My dad would always say, and I have all these examples of my family, but my dad would always be like, you cannot give what you don't have. And I think about that
Exactly.
all
Yes.
the time, all the
Yes.
time. You
Yes.
really cannot give what you don't have, as guilty as you feel. I feel the same way, Valeria. I'm just always, because we are taught that, we are a culture of givers. It's always like others before self. That is the Latino community, right?
Yes,
Because if
yes,
you ask our mothers or our tias or abuelitas, and even the ones that say no tengo dinero, the moment they get a WhatsApp from any family member, they find the dinero, right? So
yeah.
to give to others, there's always a way. To give to self, they never find a way. So this is very, very critical of how we're raised. You're like, you got to
Yes,
help everybody else, but we do put ourselves at the bottom of that list. And then you don't have a lot to give. So I agree with you. And I love that little mantra that you shared with us, because that just helps you sort of like, okay, like this is okay, this is good, like I'll be better if I do this. But I say that to myself all the time. If I'm exercise, I think, oh my gosh, like I'm wasting time. But then that's where my most creative moments come for work, or like, oh my God, how could I be exercising at 11 a.m.? Like I should be working. But then during that part is when I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this idea that I haven't thought about in a few weeks. So I always hack my mind, almost trying to justify, just even like you were saying, Gabriel, like, oh, I'm gonna buy this because it's for work. We should be able to feel not guilty even if it wasn't for work, or even if I didn't have a breakthrough moment for my company while I exercise. But whatever, it helps to make you feel like, okay, if I invest in myself, I'll be a better version of myself, for me, for my family, for my work, for my colleagues, for the world. So yeah, I guess whatever helps get out of that mentality of putting ourselves last.
exactly. And that's critical for us Latinas, particularly Latina mothers. Critical.
For sure. Well, listen, we are just at 5:01, so our hour is up. If anybody has
Oh,
any last minute questions, happy to take them. And if not, we absolutely encourage you guys, well, yes, to submit your the questionnaire with a very secret word that Miriam shared, which again is money abundance. So you can be reading more about Valeria and Valeria's book, or you can also buy it at your favorite locally owned bookstore. Or if you are like me, you can also order it online, but try to support a small business owner, maybe in your community. That is always amazing. And Valeria, if you want to give us again the title of the book, where can they find it, how can they follow you, and all those good details before we wrap up.
excellent. So the book is titled Uncolonized Latinas Transforming Our Mindsets and Rising Together. Can be found online in Amazon, also in Barnes and Noble, in Walmart, and anywhere where books are sold. And my website is valeriaaloe.com. Join the Rising Together movement. I'm also active in social media, Instagram and LinkedIn. My handle is Valeria Aloe. And I wanted to say one more thing, that is, take an action today, whether it is to buy something for yourself, to invest in you, to learn everything that we said, to build a money magnet, whatever that is critical that you take an action today. 75% of people who do not take action within the first 24 hours won't ever take action. So maximize the hour you spend here with us. You invest it. Invest the 1 hour that we just had together into action, because action will break the pattern. So that's really important.
Excellent. So we all know what we have to do in less than 24 hours. And thank you again, Valeria. Thank you for all your insights, and thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. Again, this was Suma's Money Cafecito, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much.